Get to your phone calls coming up. Cowboy fans need to be talked down off the ledge. He is the voice of ESPN's NBA coverage. He is Mike Breen, who joins us on the program. Breeny, good to have you back. How are you, bud?
Hey, Dano. I just saw those the Led Zeppelin album covers you just showed.
Yes.
You know, this has been a promotion of mine for years. There's not enough love given to Jethro Tull. To me, it's the greatest rock band of all time, and no one ever mentions it. You know, we see the Led Zeppelin, we see the Rolling Stones. We need more Jethro Tull love.
I think a guy in tights playing a flute just not resonate as much as it should in the rock and roll world there. Ian Anderson. So maybe that's the problem, Mike. I think it's the presentation of Jethro Tull.
All right, that's number one problem. Number two problem, this picture of me, my hair hasn't been that color in 15 years.
Well, isn't that good? I'm trying to make you look younger.
No, well, I dye my hair gray because I felt I looked too young. I wanted to look more mature, so I actually dye my hair gray.
What is the toughest team to call as far as their pace of play?
Ooh, I think wouldn't maybe a team, it'd be like a game between the Clippers and the Warriors, or the Warriors and the Thunder. Those games can be pretty much back and forth. Phoenix is up there. When two teams like that get together, then it gets crazy.
But if I had a slower pace game, can you make the Spurs sexier by your call? Do you feel like you sometimes may push it a little bit more to make the Spurs a little more exciting?
No, I don't. I can't make the Spurs sexier. The thing about the Spurs, though, is they're actually one of the more dynamic teams in the past several years. They're not the same old Spurs. He changed that about 5 years ago.
But, Mike, do you think, and I've made this argument, if the Spurs played in New York, this style of basketball, we would hearken back to the early 70s and say, this is great basketball, team basketball, some of the finest we've ever seen. Because it's San Antonio, they don't care about publicity. They don't care about displaying personality. I don't think they'll ever get the credit they deserve.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, I'll take it a step further. I'd say if the Spurs played in New York, many would consider them the most beloved team in the history of sports, and certainly in the history of New York. I could not agree more, because they're everything that we want in our teams, and their players are everything that we want to embrace by the way they put the team first, by their style of play. There's no question. I've actually had that conversation several times, that if you put them in New York or L.A. or Boston, in one of the major cities, or even Chicago, they'd be the most beloved team of all time.
Mike is calling ESPN's first game of the regular season tomorrow night, Bulls-Knicks at 8 Eastern with Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy. I like the Bulls in the East this year, Mike.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, it all hinges on Derrick Rose's knee. If he's fine, and we all hope, just because, from a sports fan's view, he's so much fun to watch. He's a wonderful young man, high character. He's been through a lot in terms of rehabbing. If he's ready and he can play the whole season, to me, they're the favorites in the East because of the roster, because of the coaching staff, because of the way they play defense. It'll be fun to see. I have Cleveland-Chicago Friday night in Chicago, which is a pretty good opening week game, and I can't wait to see that one as well.
Ever had a player talk to you during a game?
No, they talk to Jeff and Mark as they're going by the table frequently. Sometimes they say nice things. Sometimes they just wink and wave. Other times they look at them cross and say some mean things, because my two analysts tend to be very candid.
They're good, though. You know what? They work together. And, I didn't think Van Gundy was going to be a great analyst. But it's because when he was with Pat Riley and the Knicks, I thought they were never allowed to say anything because of Riley. And then all of a sudden you realize the personality of this guy. I saw him on Grantland last night with Bill Simmons and Jalen Rose. He's just so insightful. He's fun, sneaky sense of humor. And then you throw in Mark Jackson, too. And as you know, that can make a good game great.
No, those guys are so good. They're so good together. There's zero ego. They don't care who's talking. They've known each other. They've been friends for 25 years. And I think that's an underrated part of our business. And I've known them since I was a Nick radio guy in the early 90s. When you know somebody really well, it makes it so much more fun on the air. There's a comfort level that that's kind of hard to describe, that you know you can say or do anything to the guy next to you. And I know with those guys, I can say anything, throw out anything, and they'll run with it and they'll have fun with it.
Sneaky team you like?
Well, I heard you say the Pelicans. They're one of them. I think the Nuggets might be a sneaky team, although it's going to be hard to be sneaky in the West for both of them because the West is so loaded. I'll give you a team that's I think is going to be much improved. I think the Pistons, and I don't just say it because it's Jeff's brother, but Stan Van Gundy's an incredible coach, and they underachieved last year, and I think they've got a chance to be, in terms of the team that wins biggest winning percentage jump, they might be one of those.
You do the Knicks broadcast as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have you ever been yelled at by management, the owner of the team, about anything you've said about the Knicks?
No, I'll tell you one story. They were playing really poorly one time, and
wait, just one time they were playing poorly?
Well, we had those dark years in the 90s. No, to answer your question, no. But I know there are times, because it's New York, I think we tend to be harder on our teams than a lot of other broadcasts. And I think there's sometimes that, whether it's the head coach, and I know Jeff was like that when Jeff coached the Knicks. Sometimes he didn't like the candid commentary. And general managers and front office, sometimes, they might not like it, but I've never been yelled at, to answer your question.
Carmelo, I'm always told this. Well, he's misunderstood. That you have guys who have been scorers down through the history of the NBA, and why do you pick on him so much? I guess I just expect more out of him because I watched him almost single-handedly carry a Syracuse team to the national title. So he's not just a scorer. That I expect great players, and if you're going to be paid as a great player, to be a great player, not a great scorer. So am I unfair to Carmelo Anthony in my criticisms of him?
No, because I think he has that ability. I think he's not a good passer. I think he's a wonderful passer. I think he can be not just an adequate defender. I think he can be a good defender. But he's never fully committed to that. I think the last couple of years with the Knicks, he realizes that it's more important to win than it is to score, and I think he's really started to come towards, that total team player, that total player in terms of does a little bit of everything.
But you just said something that you have to want to pass, you have to want to play defense, you have to want to rebound. I don't think he wants to do those things. He may be good at it. I don't think he wants to be good at it.
Well, I think part of it is he's had a lot of teams where there wasn't a lot of faith and trust in his teammates. Sometimes that's legit. Sometimes, it's still about scoring. But Isaiah Thomas had a great quote years ago, and he said, young players define their games by how many points they score. And it usually takes several years before they realize the best way to define your game is how many wins your team has and how many titles that you have. And how many playoff wins that you have. But for a lot of guys, it takes longer than others. Some get it right away. Others don't. And I think, he was such a great scorer, but didn't have a lot of talent around him on a lot of those Nuggets teams that were knocked out in the first round, and they were rarely favored. I think in the last couple of years he's realized that in order for the team to reach the potential, he might have to sacrifice other things. And more importantly, and to me this is the key to the Knicks this season and for him, is completely commit to playing hard defensively every night. That was, to me, always the big knock. Look at LeBron James, how hard he plays defensively every night. That's the true essence of a superstar who does a little bit of everything.
Mike Breen is calling the first game of the regular season tomorrow night for ESPN Bulls. Knicks, 8 Eastern with Mark Jackson, Jeff Van Gundy. Seton, if you could cue up the music, and Breeny, if you want to sing along. We try to skew a little younger with our music, but we'll hit the Wayback Machine. A little classic rock. Coming up on
wonderful.
15 before the hour. Jethro Tull. Ian Anderson. Sing it, Mike Breen. This is...
make your guests feel so at home. I'm going to go listen to the entire Thick as a Brick album as soon as this interview's over.
I love that. But I like when snot is running down his nose.
Don't you connect to those lyrics?
I'm trying to forget them. Have fun tomorrow night, Breeny.
Will do, Dano.
Thank you. Mike Breen, ESPN play-by-play guy.